All right, what I'm going to show you in this video is a quick rundown on how to set up a podcast, and with the goal of podcasting an HD stream, an SD stream, as well as an audio only. So this assumes that your original content is a video podcast that you want to put out there. And in the end, I'll also show you some add-on stuff where we can also send it to YouTube and Vimeo. So the goal of this is to create a powerful set of actions that you can use over and over again to publish your media. So to get started, we're going to go into our Firepype system. We're going to log in and we'll go to the services. So you go into settings, services, and inside here, I've already got these set up, but what you'll want to do is click add new service, and you'll want to create several different podcasts. What you're going to want to do is set up a podcast, one for each type of media that you're going to be converting to or bringing in. So in this case, I'm going to assume that you're bringing in HD video. You could obviously bring in SD video, but you're going to be scaling up, so it's not going to be very pretty. But let's go ahead and set up the HD video podcast. I'll show you what that looks like. In here, essentially, we have the name of the podcast, and really, this should be called display name. It's how we view it in the system, so that you know it's just a quick way of knowing what you're dealing with. The next one's URL, and obviously, this needs to be a unique URL that you're going to assign to your podcast. So in this case, I picked Infotech HD. The title of my podcast, I just said. Signified this is the HD stream. You don't have to do that, but it just helps. Subtitle in here if you want, a description, the author, which is you, your copyright line, your email. Always as a reminder, this is a public email, so it's going to be out on the internet, so you may or may not want to have your personal one there, but maybe have a catch-all email that you use. The language of your podcast. Currently, we're only supporting English. Fairly soon, we're going to roll out, obviously, different languages. It's not that hard. We're just trying to get some quirks worked out there. And then the iTunes category here. In this case, I just chose tech news. And then, obviously, I've got an image here that's going to be used by iTunes as well as our system to essentially have an image attached to your podcast stream. The trick about this one, you're going to want to upload a 1400 by 1400 image. That's something that iTunes actually requests. You can use less, but they want to resample it, and we want to resample it as well in our systems. So you always want to upload the kind of biggest, highest resolution you can. So once you've got this, let's go ahead and save. The other ones are just the same thing. The only thing that I'm doing different is here I'm specifying audio. I changed the audio name here. It's called Infotech Audio. Again, pretty much everything's the same. And let's go into the SD version. So again, all I'm doing really, the magic thing here is that I'm setting the URL name in here. And all of these need to be unique so that I can come into our podcasting page, and you'll see in here, this is the URL for each of these streams. And when you've got multiple, what happens in our system, when you set up multiple podcasts, they automatically show up in this right-hand bar for other programs. Okay, so I've got my Infotech Audio, Infotech HD, or SD, here's HD. So all of those are listed here so that your viewers can view the other programs that you're putting out. That'll get a little more robust down the road, but right now that's what we've got. So let's go back into our system, and we'll go ahead and close this out. And the next thing we're going to do, once we've got our services set up, we're going to go into Tools and Pipe, and we are going to build a new pipe. So in here, this is really where all the magic happens. You know, if you've got the endpoints inside your services set up, and again, you're going to need, not only will you need, if you want to automate all of this, you'll need your podcast set up, but you'll also want to set up a Dropbox account and a Vimeo account, and what other endpoints. All your services need to be set up before you go into building your pipe. Otherwise, it just gets messy. So let's go to Tools, Pipe, and let's go ahead and create a new pipe. We'll call this Infotech Online. So we'll know that this is, when we put things in this pipe, things are going online. So the first thing if you're not familiar with Firepype, the first thing you're given is a loader node, and this is essentially where everything comes in. So in this case, we're going to set this up to watch a watch folder. And we'll go next, and we'll pick a service. And in this case, we only have one service we can grab from. That's our Dropbox. So we'll select Dropbox and we'll go into QA since I'm doing a test here. And we'll do QA Infotech Podcast. So that's my path. There's some nuances to where this is. If you're not familiar in Firepype where this is set up in your podcast, in Dropbox, one thing you're going to want to look is inside of your Dropbox folder, there's an apps or applications directory. So it depends on which version you're using of Dropbox, but sometimes it's called applications or it's apps. Inside there will be our application Firepype, and inside here will be all of the folders that we can see. So in this case, we're using QA Infotech Podcast. And so that's what we see here, QA Infotech Podcast. And we'll go ahead and save that. So once we save that, we've got green light here. We'll save it. There we go. And we see a green light here. So now we've got a watch folder. We've got a loader node that's set up. And that means anytime we bring a file into this folder, Infotech Podcast, when I drag a file in here, this once I launch this pipe, it will all the actions that I build in here will be acted upon. So let's grab a bunch of distributors here. Grab this and there. What we're going to do is set these up so that we're going to set up our audio podcast, save. We'll set up our HD podcast, and we'll set up our SD podcast, save. Okay, so now we'll add definitely down the road. These are a little less descriptive than I like. These should actually tell you down the road what each of these does. But for now, it's a little messy, just something we have to add. So this is our audio podcast. So what we're going to do now is bring in a converter node, and we're going to bring this audio podcast onto this converter. And again, you see how it gets messy here because you don't know which ones these are. So you kind of have to pop them open again to make sure that audio is there. It's a UI thing we got to fix. But anyway, Infotech audio podcast. So that means we're going to come into this converter and we're going to convert audio, save, MP3, and let's set this guy down to 96. That's a good one. It says poor, but it's okay. And again, we're going to convert this to an MP3 because that's what iTunes wants. And we'll hit save. So now what's happening is, as soon as we drop a file into this watch folder, it's going to send it to these three distributors. Essentially, everything works from left to right, top to bottom. So we're going to convert, we'll send it to this podcast, which is our HD podcast. So if we assume that the video coming in is HD, we need one more converter here. And we'll drop this guy here. And Infotech SD podcast. So now we need to actually convert some video here. Hit save. And we will use MP4. And we'll drop this down to, this is not HD, but we'll use it anyway, just for, eventually we'll have some wizards in here that will actually be able to tell you what you're converting to. So if you want to convert to an iPod or an iPad or things like that, it will have that in here. It's a bit, right now you just got to read the Apple specs on what they want for an iTunes podcast. But anyway, I just wanted to get this set up so you see it. Essentially, the watch folder will receive the file. It will send the HD version out to your HD podcast because it doesn't need any type of encoding or resizing. It will also then convert your video to MP3 and put it out to the podcast. It will also then take that same video and dump it to an MP4 at 640 by 480 and dump that out to your SD podcast. So those actions will be taken every time you put a file into this folder. Every time something goes in here, you drag and drop, you file, it goes in there. So another thing we want to do, if we want to expand this, let's say we want to actually take and we want to send something to Vimeo. So let's go to my Vimeo account. Let's make it public. We don't need to update any of that. So we'll make it default. We'll put it to my public account. So all of that will be done. The sending to the podcast, we'll also send it out to Vimeo, and we'll also just throw in here an informer just so we know when this is all done. We'll put. Okay, so I think we're good. So now what we have is a very bit of an elaborate little pipe here as far as what it's doing and where it's going. The next thing, once we've got all green lights here and everything's been set, the only thing we need to do is click launch. And then we see that it's running. So it says stop. That means it's running. Obviously, if you can stop it, it means it should be running. And then what we'll do is go up here and we will dump out what do I have in my test files? So let's say we want to upload the Gettysburg Address up to my podcast. We drag this over to QA, and let's go to Infotech Podcasts and drag it in here. Hit go, and once that's synchronized, we will see the podcast take action. Pretty shortly, you're going to see that your job is going to show up in the job queue. Right now, you kind of have to refresh it every so often to get it to show up there. Eventually, we'll add some Ajax in there, and we'll also clean up this god-awful, terrible-looking status page. But for now, that's the way it looks. So yeah, it'll take a little while for all of the files to synchronize and send through, but fairly shortly, I should start hearing my phone go off with an email. After a few minutes, you're going to see, this one took about 5 minutes to run through that. You're going to see that it's going to, the job's going to complete, and you should see an email from the system saying that your media has been uploaded. And then you should be able to go over to your podcast page and see that your files are now showing up on the system. And so that is how we can fire through. Let's go over to Vimeo and see that as well. That's how we can send. There we go. There's your Gettysburg Address right there. So anyway, hopefully that all helps. And if you've got any questions, as always, hit us up in the support room. We want to hear your ideas and comments and how to make this better. Thanks.